Chapter 6, Creativity and Memory. In the last chapter, we saw how reducing clutter and freeing ourselves of all the distractions is super critical. And now that we have time, it's time for memory and creativity. So, memory and creativity starts with your area of specialization. You will get a huge boost, you will get a huge edge if you have focused your effort and chosen the specialization which we covered in the previous chapters. So your choice of your specialization would be the area where you would go and build and exercise your creativity. So if you have not yet chosen that area of specialization, or if you've not really introspected what is that deep area of your deep desire to contribute, then this is time to revisit, because you can't be creative in all areas. You have to be focused, and in one area you can really go deep. So 5 steps that are listed in this chapter for creativity. Number 1 is to read extensively. You don't want to reinvent the wheel. There are a lot of people who have already done a lot of research in that area of your specialization. You want to read extensively to connect the dots in your mind as to how those ideas came through, what is the benefits, what is the pros and cons, what do you agree with those ideas, what do you don't agree with those ideas. So first you'd have to get expertise built into your area of specialization by reading other specialists in that area. They might have published a bunch of books, they might have a working blog, so read what they have already published. So that's the first step. And read diversely, not just in that area but also across the board, because then you can connect and use ideas from different fields into your area of specialization. So the first step towards building creativity, choosing specialization, is the assumption, but reading is the first step. Second is to travel places. When we travel places, we get lots of ideas from just observing, just seeing how different people do different things, just seeing how the world works in a different way, culture, role of people, the industry, how it works and operates. You'll get different ideas. So connecting with different places and going to different places will help you understand diversity in not just the place itself, but like the people, the behavior, the culture, the responsibilities, how things work, what importance they give to what things. So it just gives you newer ideas and gives you that space to connect the dots for your memory. Third, interview people. This one was not in the book, I think, but it is related to jamming, which is also in the book. But in the videos that the author has published, which are several, he has been interviewing lots of people. So interviewing people who are already an expert in that field. Like, what if you want to become an expert at teaching? Now, if you interview 10 different teachers, now you have gotten to the crux of what they do, why they do. If you want to build, let's say, an investment firm, the world-class investment firm, then you want to go talk to 10 different investors and see how what they do, what works for them, what doesn't work for them. So interviewing people who are already 10x better than you in that field gives you an edge, because now not only have you learned by reading and getting different ideas, but now you have also are learning from people who have probably done much more reading and they have built their own models of how things work for them. So interviewing people, learning from their experiences is an edge, like figuring out like who are those key people in that area of specialization that are at the forefront, and then following them by their published information that they've already published, their books, and then interviewing them would be a great idea. Fourth is to work really hard, like produce lots and lots of ideas. No idea is bad, even if you have an idea that is marginally better than your competitors, you are going to be in huge demand, because a lot of people today don't think creatively. So even if your idea is slightly better, even if you create something that's slightly better, then you have an edge. And if you continue to keep adding that slight edge to yourselves, then you'll have eventually it'll add up to something revolutionary. You could not just have incremental ideas, but then you'll have big ideas that'll come through those incremental ideas adding up in that focused field of specialization. So finding your allies, like people like-minded, um, that would really help working hard, because if you now find out people who are in a similar boat and are trying to do the same thing, then you can learn from each other. You could get at times when you're down, then they can pull you up. And so finding allies and then building that diverse team of people that you contribute ideas to, they contribute ideas back to you, you have this mutual learning and sharing sessions, is phenomenal, because now you have put in hard work and there are people who appreciate it, and then you appreciate them, and then there's this cycle of helping each other out. So working hard, creating ideas, finding your allies to build incremental output of creative effort is pretty critical. So intense hard work would be needed. And finally, fifth, memory. So creativity and memory are deeply linked, which was a great realization when I read this chapter, which is we might think that when we ask for some person for an advice and then they come up with an idea, it's just that they were able to recall better, right? So memory is the basis of creativity. If, let's say, you're trying to um, build something new, and if you can't even recollect all the things that you have read because the facts are not right for you, then you cannot really go one step forward. You're always going to be stuck trying to look up those information. So creativity, the basis for that is memory. So figuring out how to increase your memory and retention is quite critical. That was huge learning. And there's some really good, interesting tips in the book as well on to how we can create and improve our memory. So that's the next topic. So SQRQS is one technique when we want to improve our attention. We read lots and lots of content online. We read books, we read materials, we watch videos, but how much do we retain out of that? Think about it. How much do we really retain from everything that we read? At least for me, it's hardly 10%. And so if we can improve our attention by using the SQRQS technique, which is these 5 phases in which you do your reading. The first is to just quickly skim and get an overview. What are the parts? What are the headings? Then your brain is in the zone of hey, I have to do this exercise of reading, and so then it prepares itself. Then the second is to question yourself, hey, what in this topic do I already know? And when you do that, you now are triggering that part of your brain which has that information stored, and so then the new information automatically is easy to connect with that old information. So thinking about anchoring yourself, hey, what do I already know about this topic, and what do I wish to learn from this subject, right, or this title of this blog or this book or this chapter, then it gets you to be much more primed to discover those answers. Third is to then read with pauses, take notes, write down what you really felt was good, also write down what you did not like. And that's the fourth part, which is to question, what do you agree? What is the new information that got added to that older block that was already there? And what do you disagree? If you think critically, then you will be able to even retain more. And then if you explain to others, what I'm doing right now, the reason why this videos exist is so that I get so much better as part of learning this. And when I have to explain it to you, or when I create this content in a distilled fashion, it forces me as a learning function to really get better at this. So question, what do you agree, what do you disagree? And then finally do the last scan to fill in the blanks. Hey, you might have retained certain parts, but you might have lost few. When I created these slides for this video, I realized that there are so many links that are pointed out that I didn't even look at. For example, practicing the method of loci was one technique that was mentioned, but I read the chapter, I went through it, I noted that there's this thing, but I never really remembered it. So then I looked up the blog today before creating this video as to what is this method of loci of visualization and how do you enhance your memory. There's also a point in reference to this course on Coursera, which is learning how to learn, right? So that was also referenced in the chapter, but I had already forgotten. But now that I've created these slides, now that I have already enrolled in this, it's a It's taken by 2.7 million people, and it's like 15 hours. So you can do it over, so if you spread it out, you can really learn these techniques to improve your attention. So then I looked this up, and then I'm gonna actually go registered for this, and then I read a few blogs on this, right? So quite important for you to build your memory and figuring out what works for you. So okay, summarizing the checklist, have we created existing and extensive reading list for for um, for what we will read? Second, have we made travel schedules to explore new places? Do we actively find groups of people with similar interests and develop them? Do we improve our memory techniques? Right. So that is the four things to look for the checklist. Thanks.